Welcome to MSK Sonography. I am John Leddy. Today I'm introducing the Rectus Femoris, the indirect head. Now the indirect head is a recent hot topic in sports medicine, as it's only in the last few years with our improved ultrasound machines, our improved technology with the great resolution we can get, and our improved understanding of the anatomy of the region and its relevance, that we are starting to incorporate this into our schema of assessment. So the vehicle we're using to start, we're going to use a human sculpture to help you understand the anatomy, the morphology of the rectus femoris. And through this, hopefully help you create a mind map so that you can keep as perpendicular as possible to your region of interest to get the best possible results in your scanning. We will then move on to an actual scanning demonstration. With our human model here representing the tendon structure of the rectus femoris, at the top end here, the proximal attachment or the origin, there are two heads. With this arm representing the direct head, and you'll see as the direct head courses from distally to proximally, it passes deeper and medially and sits on the AIIS like a hat on a head. The indirect tendon comes off the superior acetabular ridge and the posterior coxofemoral capsule. We can just call this the anterolateral hip, and that's represented by this arm here. As it courses from distal to proximal, it travels deep and laterally. Both tendons meet to form a conjoined tendon, which we refer to as the central sagittal aponeurosis, and this extends all the way down, 2/3 of the way down the thigh. So when I'm scanning this region, with the foot representing the distal aspect of the central sagittal aponeurosis 2/3 of the way down the thigh, keeping it in short axis, we move the transducer up, keeping this aponeurosis in the middle. As we come up to this area here where the indirect tendon is coursing deep and laterally, we encounter a posterior acoustic shadow. And then we keep going up, following the direct head first to understand the structure of the lie of the land. We then capture the AIIS where the direct head is sitting on. From this position, on the AIIS, we then need to go back down distally. We need to go down to beyond the point of the posterior acoustic shadow, beyond where the anisotropy is. And from this position, the central aponeurosis is back in the middle of the screen. We need to slide the transducer laterally, coursing around the contour of the hip and the thigh. And as we do that, we take it to the point where the central aponeurosis is now the medial aspect of your screen. But we're no longer perpendicular to anything of note there. So we need to push in to try to get perpendicular with the target tissue, our region of interest, that indirect tendon. From that point, keeping that attitude, we then scroll back up, and then we'll start to see a bit of the posterior acoustic shadow. At that point, we then need to elevate the lateral aspect of the transducer just a little and maybe dig in a little bit more, go a little bit deeper on that side. And from that point, we then need to scroll up and down to get the best possible view of the fibres. We also have to capture the most distal aspect, and so we have to come right around the contour of the actual hip to capture that. And once we've caught those most distal fibres, we then keep them as perpendicular as possible. We go distally, capturing the head of the femur, which is distal to the actual attachment. We rise back up, keeping it in the same plane, capturing the tendons again, and then slightly more proximal to ensure you've captured the whole structure. You can also try to capture that structure in short axis and come through back to the conjoined tendon. We're now going to demonstrate that with a live scan. So now we're going on to the live scanning demonstration. As we discussed with the model when he was standing, the first feature to find is the distal end of the central sagittal aponeurosis. So first of all, we have rectus femoris in shot here. You can see rectus femoris. You can see vastus intermedius, vastus medialis, vastus lateralis. So back onto rectus femoris, and we're just scrolling up. And we can see the central aponeurosis here. So if we look at where that starts, you can say that is half to 2/3 of the way down the thigh. We've got the cursor right there on it. So we keep that in the central frame and we scroll up, keeping it in the middle, keeping it in the middle, keeping it in the middle. And now we'll see that there's a bit of a change in the picture there. We've got sartorius here coming over the top, but we need to keep our eye right on that central sagittal aponeurosis. And just from experience, we know we're about to hit that area of anisotropy. And we can see that now, that area going down here. So this is about where the indirect tendon splits off. So we've got that there. And what we need to do is we have to keep our eye on the medial aspect of the frame there. And we're going to, just where the cursor is, we'll see the AIIS seemingly come out of nowhere. But it doesn't come out of nowhere because we understand that that is going to happen. That's where we need to be looking. And you can see there, rectus femoris is sitting like a hat on a head. From that point where the direct tendon sits on the AIIS like a hat on the head, we then scroll distally beyond the point of the anisotropy, which again you can see through here. And then we capture that central sagittal aponeurosis again in this part. Take it to the medial aspect of the screen by sliding the transducer laterally. And then we need to dig the lateral end of the transducer in. And we can see the rectus femoris here. And then we slide the transducer cranially, and then we can see the fibers of the indirect rectus femoris coming through in this area here. I'm just going to drop the frequency a little, just increase the depth just a touch, and we can see that by scrolling up and down, altering the angle, we can almost get the structure completely flat. And if we go distal, we're onto the femur, and if we go proximal, we come right through that distal aspect of the tendon attachment. It's better there, it's more of a fibrillar shape there, so we're now starting to get more perpendicular. That's probably the best I can do with that. It's quite a challenging scan to get the rectus femoris indirect in short axis, but with a bit of persistence you can actually, using an isotropy, you can actually see that you can bring it up through into the conjoint tendon where it blends with the direct head. And it's your turn now. The question is, do you see what I see?